Hello, Chris McMeekin here with Mobily, brainstorming mobile accessibility guidelines and native ARIA, brainstorming how we can set up a simple set of test cases that lead to platform consistency and a grammar by which we can communicate about those test cases. And already underway. I wanted to give a shout out to Meryl Evans. As I was watching Meryl talk at Global Accessibility Awareness Day, I realized something. I do not have time to provide direct captions for all my videos to sync them up on YouTube. If anyone would like to fix them up, that would be awesome. But I think I can supply more content in a meaningful way by trying to speak more slowly and enunciate more clearly, so the auto-generated captions are consistent and accurate. And I think that is a good balance of me being a little more accessible without costing me a ton of time focusing on one group. Right, as I build out these slides, there's a lot of things that if I were being that kind of AAA accessibility that we think from WCAG that I would be doing, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is brainstorming and fast, and I'm doing my best to consider everyone equally, and in this case, I think trying to slow my inherently fast-paced self down for Meryl, so that the captions work, is a great compromise. Thank you for teaching me something about accessibility, Meryl. You rock. And then what we're talking about today, Christina Granquist again with the hard-hitting questions. I posted a sample success criteria guideline. We need to come up with a name for these things. I posted a sample on GitHub. And Christina asked, what is a button? So let's check out this. I'm going to call it test case. I'm using the word guideline because that's from WCAG, but let's call it test case, right? And so here is iOS accessibility guidelines. Here we are testing for the VoiceOver platform, and we have this simple control.md. And the goal of this file is to just be a really straightforward definition of what do we expect when we run across a simple, actionable control, right? As an assistive technology user, I can detect a distinct pause between the following UI accessibility element properties. And notice throughout this thing, there's links to native ARIA, where we're introducing platform terms: UI accessibility element, accessibility label, accessibility traits, button, accessibility hint. Button here is going to be different from the definition that we're used to from ARIA. Buttons in web and buttons in iOS don't quite behave identically. They're close, and obviously they both have that, you know, you click, it does something thing, but outside of that, there's some unique differences that we care about. And so you can click on these links, it will take you to the native ARIA thing. As an assistive technology user, I can detect a distinct pause between the following UI accessibility element properties: the accessibility label, the accessibility traits, and the accessibility hint. The accessibility label should represent the subject of the control, its text, or a description of the image associated with it, with special consideration used for the consistent labeling of common icons across the ecosystem, particularly material icons. So when you're talking about icons that have a consistent purpose, you know, like the profile icon, the little eye information icon, the email icon, things like those, they should be labeled consistently, even in different applications. Users running across that icon should see the same label. We should follow Apple's lead on whatever they use. And for those material icons, there's a description somewhere that I believe both Google and Apple tend to stick to. So talk about consistency across the entirety of the mobile ecosystem. Yeah. Accessibility traits. A trait of button is optional, no other traits apply. And this is where Christina's question comes in, is what is a button? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix up this success criteria afterwards. And then accessibility hint provides additional context to the action that will be taken, required when the action will take you out of the context of your application. Example, activate to go to google.com. Accessibility hints are not required on simple controls. I can't actually think of a time when a hint would be required. You can shut hints off. We don't want to put concrete relationships and required stuff into hints, but they are great for non-power users of voiceover and braille boards to give additional context to things. And for example, when you are going to be taken out of the context of your application, that's an important additional thing to share. All right, and then the rough format of the announcement should then be label, pause, button, pause, hint, right? Google, pause, button, pause, goes to google.com. In that case, maybe it should be a link. The hint adds the thing that the link would add anyway. And in native, I prefer to think of links as those things that are automatically detected by the operating system as links, and we can share the context of taking you out of your application. We're not here to talk about what links should do today. We're here to talk about these simple controls. We can debate links in the future. All right, so how do we fix this up for Christina's question? Let's go here. All right, so I am in GitHub right now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the little edit thing right here. All right, edit this file. So let's go ahead and make a change that we hope will answer Christina's question. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna find my native ARIA reference here and see what definition I have in my native ARIA for button. So let's see, a button is announced as button when the trait is applied. This is the only known behavior this trait provides. It is a common misconception that the trait of button is required to make an interactive control. This is not true. All buttons are interactive things, but not all interactive things are button. When should we apply it? The trait of button should be set when the button is or looks very much like a default UI button, or when specific affordance is given to make the control look active, and definitely not when on a more complex interactive component, an example, the card pattern, when a list view cell does not have additional affordance. All right, so we outlined them in there, and I think Christina's confusion here is still completely fair. So we have part of what is important for stuff embedded in native ARIA, and we have part of what is important in the guidelines. And I think I do want to keep most of this information here in native ARIA. So I think what the problem is that in our, let's see, oh, I followed from here, so I need to go, why did I lose my editing? There we go, I found it. So what we need to do is draw more attention to this. So let's say that we edit it and say, let's see, a trait of button is optional, no other traits apply. Please visit the N-ARIA reference on iOS button trait. And so we're going to have two links to the same article in here. But this one is going to be a little more obvious and a little more, hey, come check this out. This is where that information is. And the reason we want to do it this way is we want to keep our individual guidelines as light as possible. If you need to go and research other things, that is fine. But we want to keep at the base level, we want to keep things super simple, because this definition of button is very likely going to be needed in other success criteria that we are working on, right? So by including that kind of more complex, heavy information in N-ARIA, we gain the ability both to reuse that definition without having to include any more information in these, what should be very lightweight articles. while also keeping the reference as something that an engineer could look into, right? That's the common grammar. Here's buttons, here's what they do. I'm an accessibility expert. I look at this test case and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, that should be a button. But I don't need to share this with my engineers. They don't care about the test case again. They care about what the button trait is and when they should apply it. So we send them to N-ARIA. They only have to be aware of the terminology. They don't have to be aware of the guideline. And that makes it, that's the thing that makes it powerful. And that is N-ARIA's job in this ecosystem, is to allow Christina to go in, read this guideline and think, okay, how should that apply? Let me look up that definition. Let me share that definition with my engineer, and maybe they can then make the decision about when to apply that thing, because they have the knowledge of the platform. Christina has equipped the engineer with a little bit of knowledge of the user, and the engineer is now equipped with the combination of the knowledge of the user and the technical expectations of iOS, and they can use those combined bits of knowledge to get to some consistency. And I think the final comment on the button trait is Christina, your confusion is my confusion. Apple is not super clear on what buttons do. In fact, if you go into your web browser, for example, you will notice that when you turn the rotor, you can navigate by links and buttons. When you're in a native application, you can't. The thing that allows you in web content to navigate by links and buttons is the browser Safari, a native application. The Safari browser is using the same accessibility APIs that developers have access to. That browser is using links and buttons to create that navigation. It's navigating to those traits. And so I think it's fair to say that Apple is very unclear about what a button actually is. Sure, it communicates interactivity, but so does double tap to activate. So do various gear counts. Lots of things communicate interactivity. What the importance of the button trait in the ecosystem is not clear. And so that's where we have this ambiguity. And Christina, very, very fair question. I would love to hear Apple's input on that from somebody on the accessibility team. I don't think getting that from an arbitrary engineer at Apple would be helpful, because if you look at Apple's applications, they use the button trait inconsistently, and that is one of the problems with the iOS accessibility ecosystem and the use of these APIs. Is Apple is inconsistent, so we just have to kind of sit here and speculate. I gave the best answer that I could in N-ARIA. I made it as easy for you to find as I could. Christina, let me know if you are able to find it, and let me know what you think, and everybody else, let me know what you think. And Meryl, I hope that whatever auto captioning happened on this video, that it worked for you, and that you were able to enjoy this video as much as everybody else. Have a good day.